It is week one for fantasy football. You need to know who to start and who to sit at quarterback and tight end. We're going to go game by game and break down those matchups to see who should be in your lineup and who should be on your bench. First, a quick announcement.
Flockfantasy.com/endgame is the ultimate cheat code for your fantasy football season. Gain the edge with our top-notch draft rankings plus our weekly in-season rankings. And get access to our secret knowledge with our bonus articles and videos that you cannot find anywhere else. And as a special bonus, you can show off your fantasy skills in style by wearing one of our classy Endgame t-shirts for free just by being a member. Sign up now at flockfantasy.com/endgame and get an amazing 30% off your subscription.
Now, there are some players that you don't have to think about. These are must starts. At quarterback, Pat Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, and Trevor Lawrence. At tight end, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, George Kittle, Darren Waller, and Dallas Goedert. Now, the very first game of the season is the Lions going against the Chiefs. You know what you got in KC. You're starting those guys. Are you considering Jared Goff in what might actually turn out to be a shootout?
Yeah, that's the thing. If you missed out on quarterback, you waited on quarterback, you're streaming quarterback, I think Jared Goff is a good streaming option this week. It should be a high-scoring game. A little bit worried that he's on the road in KC, but still, I think he'll have to throw enough to give himself good fantasy value. So if you're streaming QB, I think Goff is a good start this week.
I mean, it could be any game with the Chiefs could be a shootout, but that Chiefs defense loves to start slow and make everybody think that they're the worst in the league, and then they kind of figure it out when they need to. But yeah, the Lions could have put up some points. I like Goff this week. I think he gets a 300-yard game or close. But still, I mean, you're only starting him if you did really wait on quarterback or if you're playing the streaming game. So streaming, but I'm not going to say top 10. And there are a lot of people excited about their rookie tight end, Sam Laporta, getting all sorts of hype in the preseason. But is he fantasy relevant already?
Not for me. I am not trusting Sam Laporta in my lineup week one. I hope you have a better option at tight end.
Yeah, everybody loves rookies, but let's remember this is a rookie tight end, and rookie tight ends rarely make an impact, especially in the season opener. Panthers taking on the Falcons. Debut of number one pick Bryce Young. How do you think he does in Atlanta?
I mean, probably not great. He's a rookie quarterback making his first NFL start. I know it's not the worst matchup, but yeah, I'm not trusting Bryce Young in his first game on my lineup. Even in a super flex league, I would have trouble starting him. He's on my bench.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta, not a great defense, but also not necessarily the most dynamic offense. Don't expect this to be a super high-scoring game. Don't expect them to press Bryce Young to throw the ball too much. So, I mean, it would have to be a super flex league, and even then, kind of a low-end QB2 option. And then Desmond Ridder, he's got some exciting toys there in that offense to play with, but what can he do with them?
Yeah, hopefully he can do something with him, but I'm not willing to find out in week one. Very barely borderline startable, even in a super flex league this week for me. So another guy I'd rather sit.
I'm just going to say I expect to pretty much say the same thing every week about Desmond Ridder. I'm never going to want to start him in a single QB league, and he's always going to be kind of a borderline 2 QB super flex start. Just not the highest ceiling, but also not the lowest floor. So maybe around QB 20-ish for me. I think that's where he fits this week. And then, look, we don't have Kyle Pitts as a must start because you know how last season went. What do you think he does this week?
I kind of feel like he's probably going to start slow. Remember, he came off that knee injury. I think they're going to maybe limit his snaps a little bit early in the year here. I still think if you drafted Kyle Pitts, you pretty much have to start Kyle Pitts. But don't be disappointed if it's not the best start in week one.
Yeah, it's really hard to temper expectations for such a talented player. But, at the same time, you drafted Pitts. You're obviously going to ride or die with him at tight end. So put him in there and see what he does. Texans at Ravens. Time to talk about the number 2 pick and also rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud. How does he fare in his debut?
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing I said about Bryce Young. It's not like it's a terrible matchup or anything, but rookie making his first start, not trusting him in any of my lineups.
Yeah, well, this matchup definitely tougher of the Ravens in Baltimore. Yeah, I like Stroud long term. I don't like him this week, so I could not start him even in a Superflex league. Now, that doesn't mean that a guy like Dalton Schultz at tight end doesn't have value, because rookie quarterbacks do tend to hone in on their big target across the middle of the field. Can Schultz pull off a fantasy relevant week?
Can he? Sure. Will he do it in any of my lineups? Probably not. I think there are better options than Dalton Schultz this week. I'm not starting him.
Yeah, this is not the time to see what happens. I mean, Schultz is not a guy that you drafted early. You could probably stream someone else with some more upside. Bengals taking on the Browns. Joey B looks like he's good for week 1. You got him. You can go with him. Now, Bengals also have another new tight end. It seems like a yearly tradition with them. It's Irv Smith, who is a talented receiver, but is he going to fit in and actually produce points?
I do kind of like Irv Smith as a sneaky tight end this year, but man, you got Jamar Chase, you got T. Higgins, you got Tyler Boyd. Hard to see much room for him this week, so not one of my favorite streaming options this week. I'm sitting him.
Yeah, agree there. Again, he's not somebody who should jump to the forefront as a starting option at tight end. I think he's somebody who's going to be interesting to watch. At some point, might be a good waiver wire pickup, but starting, it's too soon. Now we get to see Deshaun Watson in Cleveland start from the beginning of the season, hopefully push reset after last year. How do you feel about him against the Bengals?
I feel great about Deshaun Watson this week. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. I think we're going to see a much better Deshaun Watson. I also really like his line on Underdog, his projection of 24.5 rushing yards. I love the higher on this. Even last year when he was like struggling and not really in tune, he went over 21 rushing yards in every game, and he went over that 24 rushing yard mark in 4 of his 6 games. I think he definitely does that in this game, a game where they're going to rely on him and his arm a lot. So love that. Love taking the higher on his rushing line of 24.5, and I also love him as a start this week in your fantasy leagues.
That sounds like a smart pick. I mean, Watson should be a solid starter pretty much all season. Bengals, good but not elite defensively. So I think Watson puts up good numbers. And then another guy we talked about a lot, David Njoku, great later option if you waited on tight end. Does he get it going right away?
I think so. Why not? I just talked about Deshaun Watson. I think they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. David Njoku, one of those tight ends. You got him. You pretty much just start him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say you have to start him if you have him. It's possible you drafted another tight end pretty close to him that you might like better. Probably not, though. I think Njoku is a good start in week 1. Jacksonville against Indianapolis. Another rookie quarterback. That's right, they're all just getting thrown in the fire. Anthony Richardson. I know he's an intriguing guy to draft as a late quarterback. Do you think he can put up numbers from the jump?
I think so because of what he can do with his legs. This is the one rookie I'm starting. But I totally get it if people are like, no way am I starting Anthony Richardson. Totally get it. For me, though, I'm starting him. I'm rolling with him.
Well, there's no way I'm starting Anthony Richardson. I guess I'm a skeptic here. I need to see what he can do against an actual NFL defense. Got worries about turnovers and his accuracy. I get the rushing appeal, but man, I would just much rather go with somebody else. I got to see him perform. Remember, even Justin Fields as a rookie looked pretty bad most of the year. That's kind of what I expect from AR. Now on Jacksonville's side, I think T-Law has earned his must-start status after last year. Evan Ingram, not there. What do you think about him in this matchup?
Yeah, not there is like a no doubt must start, but I think if you got Evan Ingram, you're starting him. This matchup should not scare you in any way. Evan Ingram, a good start this week.
Well, I'll tell you, I think Ingram will be a solid start for most of the year, but I actually don't like him this week. I think he's kind of one of those sneaky bust picks. Now, Indianapolis, not a good team. Just, call it what it is, and not a great defense. But even last year, when they weren't very good at all, they didn't give up a lot to that tight end. Only on average about 4 catches per game to a tight end as a team. Evan Ingram, right now, his line on Underdog is 4.5 receptions in week 1. I am going lower than that because, well, first of all, Indy was not that bad against tight ends last year, and that was without their stud linebacker Shaquille Leonard, and he should be finally back and healthy. So we could see improvement there along the middle of the field. But also, I really don't think Jacksonville will need to pass the ball that much in this game. And if they do, they're going to try to show off Calvin Ridley. I don't think this is a big game for Ingram. So if I can do it, I'm going to bench him. And I'm going to pick lower than that 4.5 on underdog. And when you see lines like that jump out of you, like, no way, you've got to smash higher, lower, put those together. You can triple or even win 10, 20 times amount of money you put in on those pick'ems and underdog. If you haven't signed up and tried it yet, go ahead and do that now and use promo code ENDGAME to get a 100% deposit match. Tampa Bay and Minnesota. This game looks a little different because the quarterback now in Tampa is Baker Mayfield. So, expectations for him in his first game as a Buc.
It's a great matchup. It's a Vikings bottom 5, maybe bottom 3 defense, but I do not care. I am not starting Baker Mayfield.
I mean, there's two ways to look at it. Maybe this is a great spot for Baker Mayfield, or maybe this is a great spot for the Minnesota Vikings defense. I mean, I know they're not good, but are they really that bad? Sorry, there's no world in which I am considering Baker Mayfield. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, is interesting, I would say at the very least. I mean, he's always solid, isn't he?
Solid. They're at home. He's got weapons. I think Kirk Cousins one of the better streaming options this week for sure.
Yeah, my only concern is if Tampa doesn't really move the ball and put up points, maybe the Vikings don't have to pass that much. But yeah, Cousins a really, really high floor play at quarterback this week, so I think he's got top 12 potential. Titans at the Saints. Ryan Tannehill, well, he's got a true alpha receiver now in Nuck. Does he put up numbers against the Saints?
Probably not. I mean, what are we expecting here? Like 200 yards, maybe a touchdown, maybe 20 rushing yards. I mean, barely even startable in Superflex.
You know what I expect is not much from Tannehill. I expect a lot of Derrick Henry as usual and mediocre passing numbers, so I will pass on Tannehill. Now, Derek Carr might be interesting because, I mean, he's got weapons and the Tennessee defense, not that great. Do you think he has a nice debut?
I think he'll be okay. I think there are better QBs like Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins that we've already talked about if you're streaming QB. I think in a 2 QB Superflex league, he's fine, but in a 1 QB league, I'd like other options.
I don't know if I'm so bold as to stream Derek Carr in a single QB league or to put him in a starting lineup yet, but I think he's a guy who might have a surprisingly good game. I do think they put the ball in the air a lot. And like you said, if Michael Thomas actually is healthy for once, look, maybe this is a good passing game for Carr. And then we got a couple kind of trendy sleeper tight ends throughout this draft season. Let's start with Chig. That would be Chigoziem Okonkwo in Tennessee. Do you think he has any streaming appeal here?
First of all, I'm impressed you said his full first name. Good job. No streaming appeal here. I mean, you got Hopkins. It sounds like Burks is going to play. We already talked about low volume passing offense, not starting Chig.
Yeah, if Burks doesn't play or is limited, that makes him more interesting, but not that much more interesting because it's still the Titans offense. So I don't think we're there yet. If they hadn't signed Hopkins, it would be a different deal. But yeah, I don't think you can start Chig. And I will admit, I like Juwan Johnson this offseason as a sleeper as well, but I don't know if I'm ready to start him.
I think maybe if you're streaming tight end, like you just really don't like your tight end, he's an okay option. Not necessarily my favorite option at tight end, but I think he's okay if you're desperate.
I think this week he should be okay because it's the Titans, and the only thing is I think he's a little more touchdown dependent than a lot of tight ends. I mean, a lot of tight ends are just touchdown dependent, but I don't know if I foresee that much volume there. So he's streamable. Yeah. Niners at the Steelers. Look who's the starting quarterback for San Francisco again. It's Brock Purdy. Now, some risk here, obviously. See if he's fully recovered from that UCL injury. What do you think he will do?
I mean, it sounds like he's pretty much fully recovered, but man, this is a tough matchup. This Steelers defense is going to be really good. Look, he's got playmakers. You can always just get the ball in one of their hands and let them do all the rest of the work, but just not a lot of upside here. I'm not starting Brock Purdy this week.
I think we have to say he at least has some super flex appeal because of that offense he's in and those weapons, but he's never going to have the highest ceiling. I mean, let's just admit he's sort of a product of that system, like any quarterback who's in there. Like Jimmy Garoppolo was. So I think he's okay, but he's not somebody I'm going to go crazy for. Definitely not going crazy for Kenny Pickett, especially when they're playing the Niners.
Yeah, I know Kenny Pickett's looked great this preseason, and I think he'll be pretty good this year, but in this matchup against the Niners, I'm not going to start him.
No, I don't think you can do it. I mean, you'd have to be kind of desperate in a 2 QB league. What about Pat Freiermuth, though? I mean, kind of one of those guys who's fringe. You don't really have to start him every week, but you like him, so you drafted him as your starter. Do you think he puts up numbers?
I think he'll be okay. I mean, I don't expect this to be a high-scoring game, a lot of touchdowns, but he's got a decent floor in PPR leagues, and look, he's a better option than a lot of the tight ends we've talked about so far. I think if you got him, you're starting him.
Most weeks, I'm just saying, roll Muth out there, no questions asked, but facing Fred Warner, who might be the best cover linebacker in the game, I could do without that. Cardinals at the Commanders, and it looks like it will be somebody other than Kyler Murray at Arizona. I don't know. Does it matter?
No, I don't care who it is. Not starting them. No chance.
Now, on the other hand, Sam Howell is kind of interesting. Done some things this preseason, got weapons, playing against Arizona.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm ready to say I would stream him in a 1 QB league, even though this is an incredible matchup. But I think in your 2 QB Superflex leagues, he's a solid QB2 going against what's likely going to be the worst defense in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if you put up big numbers. It would take some cojones to put him in your lineup in a single QB league, and you really should have gone quarterback much earlier, that you didn't need to start Sam Howell. But yeah, let's see what happens first. I mean, this could just be a game that neither team scores a lot, or maybe just the running game dominates. So Howell's interesting, but don't get too far ahead of yourself. And one good thing Arizona might have going for it is Zach Ertz looks like he could be back after suffering an ACL injury mid-year. He has been an elite tight end in the past. Could he do something to redeem himself this year?
Over 30 years old, coming off ACL with horrible quarterback play. No chance I'm starting Zach Ertz.
I mean, when you put it that way, yeah, it doesn't really sound like a good idea. So, Packers at the Bears. A lot of talk about Jordan Love. Looked really solid so far in the preseason. Can he carry it over to the regular season?
I think so, but again, like Sam Howell, I don't want to stream him in my 1 QB leagues. I think there are better streaming options that we've already talked about. But I think in your 2 QB Superflex league, he's a solid QB2.
I'd agree with everything you just said. Solid, not spectacular most likely. The matchup is good, but you got to figure the running backs are going to be the lifeblood of this offense still. So what does that mean for Luke Musgrave, who's also got some buzz this preseason? But again, we're talking about a rookie tight end.
Yeah, I really like Luke Musgrave. I think he's going to do some things this year, but not week 1. I'm not putting him in my lineup week 1, rookie tight end. Wait and see with Luke Musgrave. I'll pass.
Yeah, you're still kind of hoping for a touchdown. Otherwise, we can't expect that much out of a guy like Musgrave. I think that still kind of applies to Cole Kmet, who finally did score touchdowns last year. But do you think he can be a focal point of this passing offense in general?
I don't know if I would say focal point, but I think he could be a nice number 2 in this offense, and I think that gives him at least some streaming appeal this week, especially when we're talking about the tight end position. Any tight end that has a chance to score a touchdown is worth a stream, so I think he's worth a stream if you need him.
Yeah, agree. He's always going to be kind of right there. A guy I don't really jump up and down to put in my starting lineup, but you don't really feel too bad about either. So kind of touchdown or bust. He's got a decent chance this week. Raiders taking on the Broncos, and your new quarterback in Las Vegas is Jimmy Garoppolo. Hasn't drawn rave reviews so far. Do you think he can do something in his first start as Raider?
Probably not. Broncos defense was really good last year. I don't expect that to change. Jimmy G, not starting him.
I doubt I'll have much interest in Jimmy G at all this season, but on the road in Denver, that's a hard pass. Now, Russell Wilson, first game with new coach Sean Payton. What do you expect from him?
I mean, it's the Raiders. Like, you'd think he should be good, but he might be missing Jerry Jeudy. He hasn't looked that good in the preseason. The offensive line hasn't looked good. Barely a start in 2 QB Superflex for me. No way I'm streaming him in a 1 QB league.
Yeah, I need to see some hard evidence that Russ isn't just done. I mean, his days of being an elite quarterback might be over. I'm willing to be open-minded, but I'm not willing to start him in fantasy. And where does that leave a guy like Greg Dulcich? Look, maybe he benefits from the Judy injury, or maybe he just isn't fantasy relevant.
Yeah, not liking what I've been seeing from Dulcich in preseason with his role with Adam Troutman. I wish I could say he's a good streaming option this week because it is a good matchup against the Raiders, but I can't do it with him.
Yeah, this is a matchup that looked a lot better on paper before this whole training camp and exhibition season. I'm not giving up on Dulcich just based on what we've seen, but I'm not starting him either. Dolphins at the Chargers. Tua gets back on the field and he's going to go to the West Coast. He's got a pair of really good receivers. Do you expect a big game out of the gate?
I do. I think if you drafted Tua late or if he's sitting on your waiver wire and you don't like your QB, he's a great start this week. I would absolutely start him in one QB leagues.
This is the type of game that you have to start him because definitely could be a shootout. Chargers have talent, but they never seem to really put it together on defense, have given up a lot of points in the past. So, yeah, if you have Tua, you definitely want to roll him out there. And, of course, you're definitely starting Justin Herbert if you have him. What about the tight end on that side of the ball, Gerald Everett?
I honestly almost forgot about Gerald Everett. They even have Gerald Everett. Now they drafted Quentin Johnston. I just don't see a big path for Gerald Everett. Not starting him.
Everett seems to be the kind of guy that only really benefits when one of the receivers is hurt, which could happen, but as of right now, it's not the case, so you can't start him. Eagles taking on the Patriots. Philly side of the ball, you're good. New England side of the ball, well, let's start with Mac Jones. Is Mac Jones going to prove all the doubters wrong in this matchup?
Yeah, probably not this week. I mean, if there's one benefit, it's that he's at home. But everything else is working against him. Tough defense, tough matchup, not starting Mac Jones.
Like some people think that maybe the Philly defense will slip a couple notches because of some players they lost and coaches and stuff. I don't. They're stacked. This defense is tremendous. Mac Jones, not so much. So there's no chance I have Mac Jones in any lineups. That doesn't mean that they can't have any fantasy value in that roster. We've heard that Hunter Henry might get a lot more involved, especially in the red zone. Do you think he could maybe score a touchdown or two against Philly?
I mean, they got to get to the red zone first. That's the problem here. I mean, maybe he definitely has touchdown upside. I mean, this is not a good matchup. I would rather not start Hunter Henry this week.
Yeah, look, I don't think Henry's days of, being an asset to fantasy football teams is completely over, but this is not the week to test that theory. And then Mike Gesicki, maybe another dynamic duo at tight end there, but, really, are we going to start him?
No, I'm not.
Rams, Seahawks. Let's talk about old man Stafford. That'd be Matthew Stafford. Injured a lot of last year. He's back. Can we expect good things?
I mean, it sounds like he's healthy. It sounds like he looks better, but the Seahawks defense, their secondary was really good last year. I think Matthew Stafford will be okay, maybe borderline in your 2 QB superflex, but definitely not in your 1 QB leagues.
I'm not that far away from thinking that Stafford is just done. I'm sure he still has a couple good games left in him, but on the road in Seattle, I don't think it's it. So I can't have any interest in Stafford this week. Geno Smith, obviously surprisingly good last year, but more so in the first half than the second half. What does that mean for him week 1 of this season?
I like him week 1. I think he's another very good streaming option this week if you're streaming QB. Rams defense, nothing to be concerned about as far as the secondary goes. He's got weapons. He's at home. I like Geno this week.
It's hard to believe. You can look at the numbers. Geno Smith was a top 5 fantasy quarterback last year in most formats. I don't know that he'll do that this year, but I know that he's in a great spot at the home game. The Rams defense, not that good anymore, so I think he's a very solid start this week, even in a single quarterback league. Then the Rams, well, they don't have a lot of options. Well, maybe that's good for Tyler Higbee since the wideouts aren't overly appealing. Do you think Higbee maybe has some sneaky value?
Probably has some sneaky value.
I think he's streamable, just because of, like I said, tight ends often benefit from, the fact that the other wide receivers on this roster aren't as appealing. Does he really, really trust Van Jefferson that much or Tutu Atwell or whoever? I think Higbee is playable. Not your best option, but, I don't mind him. Cowboys at the Giants. I feel like everyone is just already sleeping on Dak Prescott. And now the whole Trey Lance thing People are just kind of burying him already. What do you think he does now, fresh off of the news that they just acquired a quarterback?
Yeah, I think he'll be good. I mean, it's not the best matchup. Giants have a good defense, but Dak's a good quarterback. He's got weapons. I feel like if you drafted Dak Prescott, you're starting Dak Prescott.
This is kind of a make or break year for him, and I think the acquisition of Lance, that just kind of proves it. So, look, I like Dak. I like this matchup. I'm not worried about the Giants defense too much. I think he's pretty much a must start. And the other side is Daniel Jones. A lot of people impressed by him making progress last year. I'll just tell you, I think he's way overrated in fantasy, and against Dallas, there's no chance I'm starting him.
Yeah, I think he's okay like as your second QB in a super flex 2 QB, but I would not want to be starting him in a 1 QB league in this matchup.
And then in Dallas, the tight end often puts up points. Well, Dalton Schultz is gone, so now it could be Jake Ferguson. Is he someone who should draw some interest from fantasy owners?
I think he should draw some interest, but you shouldn't be starting him week 1. This is a guy you want to see how he's used, how he looks. Don't want to start him in week 1.
Agreed. I like stashing him, putting him on your bench, but not starting him yet. And then the weekends with the Bills at the Jets. Aaron Rodgers in his New York debut. How do you think he will fare?
I think he'll be okay. It's not the best matchup. He is at home, so that's nice, I guess, but I don't expect a huge Aaron Rodgers game. I think as your second QB in a Superflex 2 QB, he's okay. But again, I don't want to stream him in a 1 QB league.
Okay, as far as I'll go. There'll be a couple games this year where they face kind of, mediocre defenses. Well, he'll put up the occasional big game, but I really think he's got a hard cap on that ceiling nowadays. They're not going to throw the ball that much because this Jets team has a really good defense and they have 2 good running backs. They just don't need to. And he doesn't have that rushing upside, so Rodgers, super flex only. And that tight end, the Bills got an exciting new weapon in Dalton Kincaid. A lot of people putting him out there already as his starting tight end. Would you do that?
No chance. I mean, the way we saw them use the tight ends this preseason definitely worries me for Kincaid as far as being that slot receiver type of guy. No chance I'm starting him.
You cannot get carried away. Rookie tight end, I don't care what team he's on or how high he was drafted. It takes time. Not starting him. And let's end with the new tight end for Aaron Rodgers. That would be Tyler Conklin. At least he's one of them. Guy probably has the most fantasy appeal. Does he intrigue you?
He intrigues me, kind of like how Jake Ferguson intrigues me. I want to see how he's used and how he looks. I don't want to start him this week.
Gonna have to agree with that. It's too early to be taking chances like this. All right, now that we've told you which quarterbacks and tight ends you should start or sit, don't forget about the running backs and the receivers and every position that matters. We've got you covered.